Team development. It is that thing that is huge, and it can be your greatest asset or it can be a huge liability in your agency. Nobody writes the path for you. Nobody makes the plan for you, but everybody expects you to have it down pat because after all, you're the owner, right? You're supposed to have all the answers. You don't always have the answers. Sometimes you have to ask an expert. And that's exactly what we're going to do today on ActionCast. Hey, welcome to ActionCast. I am Katie. I'm the community manager here at Home Care Ops. And today I am joined by a wonderful, wonderful expert on this. This is that thing where we've talked about soft skills before on this program. We've talked about those things that people don't recognize the need for until you get in a situation to where you're like, oh my goodness, it is a crazy time around here. And if I just had this in order, this in order, this in order, but then you don't know where to start. And so team development is what we're going to talk about today. And we are going to talk about that to the wonderful Nicole Haney. Nicole is the leadership and team development expert. I want to say coach, like you're both, but she is the expert here at Home Care Ops. And she's the expert because she knows what she's doing. She has experience across multiple agencies. She owns a home care agency. She has a senior living facility. She has an adult daycare. And no doubt all of those are unique in their challenges that they have. They need unique structure in place. And that's what Nicole does. Nicole has built all of those leadership teams from scratch. She didn't come in and somebody had it prepared for her. She didn't have a do it for you model. She came in and built all those leadership teams, and she has done it to a point to where all of those facilities run so well. And it's inspirational just to watch, just to see that take place. So we are going to get to benefit from that today. Welcome, Nicole Haney.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Leadership is something that I didn't always realize the importance of it. And I guess I didn't always realize that because we don't like to, really recognize our strengths. It wasn't something that I realized until people started pointing it out. Like, hey, your team, why are you not working? Like your team's running. And so it wasn't until people started pointing it out that I realized maybe this is my area. Like I do pretty well at finding the right people and building the right people and building them into a role. And before I knew it, I had these 3 different senior care businesses, and they were all team led. And it was one of those things that going back and kind of reflecting on it, I was like, maybe I don't know what I'm doing everywhere, but maybe this is something where I might know what I'm doing. So that it was kind of at that point a couple of years ago, I started really kind of focusing in on not really the what's and the hows, because there's a ton of leadership experts out there. There's a ton of development experts out there in recruiting and retention. I started just kind of paying attention to what I was already doing and started implementing that a lot more intentionally in my businesses. And 2 years ago, when I purchased the assisted living that I have, I really kind of took everything that I had been kind of put under a microscope and had dissected and moved around and put that into practice to really see, was this really what I was good at? And it was. Without trying to sound boastful, it really was where I realized, within 6 months of just managing that from a distance, the assisted living, and kind of watching where their pain points were and the things that they struggled with, and then implementing, once I purchased it, the systems that I already had in place in my day program and home care agency. It was a very seamless, very easy transition, and very quickly developed the leadership team that's in place now that's running the day-to-day operations of the business. So It was fun. I'm excited to be able to talk with everybody and kind of explain and help deep dive with everybody on their leadership team and how to build that, and talk about not just the pain points, but also real life solutions and actions that will help them build their own leadership team.
That's awesome. And I've seen you do this with so many owners that come in to Action Leaders. And it's heartbreaking for us when, I mean, I guess I would say heartbreaking, but yet it's also encouraging because you see so much room for growth. But there, you know, as well as I do, there will be owners that come into Action Leaders that they might be running, 1.5, 2 million, 2.5 million, and yet they have to call their leadership team every day, or they will be talking to us and they'll be buzzing in on their phone, asking them questions. What should I do with this? Was so-and-so supposed to do this? And it's painful to see at that level, them trying to still keep all those plates spinning. And it's so sad when, like I said, you have a $2 million a year owner that knows the scheduling needs of certain caregivers or that's crazy. It's such an amount of pressure to have on an owner when, your business is pulling in a certain amount of revenue. And yet know that Sally needs this day off for such and such. That is such an unexpected and tenable amount of pressure to put on one person, and it's not sustainable. They come in and they're so frustrated, they're so overwhelmed, and they're almost drowning in their own success because they haven't built, and this is your thing, they haven't built that leadership ladder of just where every rung is supporting itself in a way to where it's just not dragging you down. And I'll brag a little bit. You have those 3 businesses, and I happen to know you're fixing to go out of the country for a week or so, and you're not worried about it. You're not scrambling trying to get things in place while, because you're going to be out of contact with us. This is just a decision. You said, hey, I'm ready for a vacation. So you did this. So where does that start? Where does that ability for the owner that can't leave for the weekend right now, who, is scared to spend Christmas with their family because somebody's going to call, that owner that's in that place, where's their pain points, and where does that look like for them in that journey of team development?
So immediately, like thinking through like our home care ops group and our Action Leaders group, immediately there's some owners that come to mind, both that are currently living in that realm, and then also ones that I've worked with that have kind of gotten out of that and they're now kind of doing the same thing. And it's disheartening and it's inspiring at the same time.
I was trying to think of words too. I was like, man, how do you describe this? Yeah.
Because I know that it doesn't have to be that difficult, but a lot of times when we start these agencies, we all start for a lot of the same reasons. And a lot of what got us to where we're at, where we're, maybe we're at a $2 million mark, $2.5 million. What has gotten us there is our own grit and determination, but it also will probably be our demise and our downfall because we're still involved in those day-to-day operations. We still know that Sally caregiver needs these days off, blah, blah, blah. All of those little intricate moving pieces of the business, it really does weigh on us after a while. And we can only grow to our own capacity. And it usually, honestly, depending on certain specifics in the agency, but it is probably right around that $2.5 million mark where we're like, I am maxed. I have people in place, but I'm still doing scheduling. I'm still doing this, or that. And that kind of boils down to the difference in having a team of managers versus a team of leaders. And there is a very, very big difference in having a team of managers and a team of leaders. And when I talk to people and they tell me, yep, I have a team-led agency. And I talk to them and I ask them and we kind of deep dive on that. Like, what does that look like? What does your leadership team do? But they're telling me that they're doing the schedule or they're approving time off or they're still doing intakes. And so that to me is an immediate red flag that they don't have a leadership team. They have a management team. And I say this in the kindest, loving, most loving way possible. But when that happens, it is usually because we as the owner are the problem. And that is because we don't have a true understanding of what our agencies really need to be successful, because we can't let go of that control. So we put people in management positions to monitor and maintain, but they're really not leading anything. They're just checking off the task. And so with that, really kind of builds this agency of a lot of people and a lot of overhead, but no clear directive. And so as owners, when we start putting people in these positions, we get to that point where we can't let go of control, because some of the pain points are lack of accountability. There aren't really clear defined roles in what those individuals should be doing as a leader. And we ourselves don't have a real clear understanding of the difference in having managers and building a leader in our agency. And so it makes it very difficult to create a cohesive culture within our agency where we know exactly what every person is supposed to be doing, who's accountable for what. And what we see and what we know happens is we have a ton of burnout because we put people in roles they're managing.
Right.
They're not managing a smooth running agency, though. They're managing chaos. And a lot of times we joke and we have like, oh, the chaos coordinator, little merch that is around our industry. And if that's what your team is managing, you can almost guarantee that your turnover rates are going to be extremely high and your staff is going to have a lot of burnout. And again, you're back limited to what you can do because you are the person that's stepping in. And so those pain points, regardless of size, without really clear defined roles and accountability, it doesn't allow for your agency to develop a culture that is supportive. And we all see repeatedly that our numbers turn over and we have a lot of burnout in both our field staff and our team internally in the office. So I think those are a lot of the pain points that I hear from owners who are kind of at their max capacity and don't really have a leadership team. They have a management team in place.
That's so good. And I actually remember a coaching session where, and we were like, explaining to an owner here, this is, and you could see like the revelation on their face. And they had a moment where, and I remember them saying something like, oh my God, I've hired babysitters, not, manager. In my mind, I thought I was hiring for this role, but I was actually just really expecting them to, coddle and make sure they weren't whining too much and make sure I have developed a team of babysitters instead of what I need for actual growth, for sustainable real growth. And hearing you say that, it lets me see that when this is happening, when this is the weak link in the chain, we're giving up as owners the two most precious resources we have, and that's our time and quality people that had potential. Like, not everybody that we lose because they're frustrated. Honestly, the good ones are going to get frustrated the fastest. The ones that have the most potential in that negative energy space is going to be the ones you lose the fastest, because internally, maybe they don't have the skills in place, but they do have the potential. And so internally, they know this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. So they can't always tell us that, but they leave in a huff, So what is that next step for an owner that needs that? What is the next step in leadership development?
Yeah. So one of the things that I tell people, and sometimes people look at me like I have three heads, but if you truly want to develop a leadership team and not a group of managers, you as the owner have to do probably three things. And the first thing is understand first what your agency needs. What are the systems? What are the processes? What are the internal metrics of the business that need a clear, defined person in charge?
Okay.
So is it scheduling? Is it your intakes? Is it your client, your retention, or recruitment and retention? Those things are very, very important in any size agency. But at a certain point, those specific things need their own leader. They need somebody that can understand the process, and they can continuously be able to monitor and review that process to find the bottlenecks in the process and work them out. It can't be the owner. It has to be somebody that is dedicated to that role. And that comes through really clarifying the roles and the needs of the agency. And that is probably the most kind thing you can do for anybody coming into a leadership role, is have very clear, defined roles and responsibilities. And then also, when I tell people, you have to decide as the owner of what are you okay with not knowing? Because you can't know everything. You don't need to know everything. Because as an owner, when we know everything and we know every little fire that's happening, we do what? We put on the fireman's hat and we go in and we try to put the fire out.
Solution.
Yeah. Here's our solution. I'm going to go in and I'm going to fix the problem, or I'm going to put the fire out. That can't be us. That has to be the person that you put in that role. They have to become, hopefully, not really the firefighter, but the process improver. And so understanding that it means that you have to know what you're okay with not knowing. You don't need your team to come to you with every single thing. What are the key dynamics that you need to know as the owner to make sure that you have enough information to still feel involved in your business without having to go in and set fires to find things out? So clarifying roles and getting very, very clear responsibilities out there for your team, and setting very clear communication standards. These are the things that, as the leader of this department, these are the things that you come to me with. Otherwise, you got this. I put you in this role for a reason. You've got this. And it also is very important that you, as the owner of the agency, understand how you show up as the leader of the agency, because it becomes a lot about supporting your team, giving your team the support and the tools that they need to be able to do their job appropriately. Because 9 times out of 10, and probably 10 times out of 10, if you're catching everybody at the right time, they want to do the right thing.
Right.
When they fail to meet that mark, a lot of times it's because we haven't given them the tools or the necessary means to be able to meet their job duties, because sometimes we have control issues as owners, because this is our baby. We've birthed it. We've grown it. You know, we've invested our time and our energy and our money into these things. So it's really hard for us to give up that control. So that's why I say understanding, what does the agency need? What do you need to know as the owner? And a lot of times this happens through discovery calls. And so one of the things that I'm doing over the course of the next month, 2 months, is I'm doing what I call leadership ladder phone calls with owners. And so if you want to follow up, just put leadership in the chat. We can get you scheduled, and it's just a 15-minute call. You and I kind of deep dive into your agency. We talk about your pain points. We talk about what actions you can take immediately stepping away from that call. And I will kind of work with you on taking your managers and developing them into leaders, so you can truly be an owner and not a firefighter.
That's awesome. And that's an awesome opportunity. And I'll tell you one thing that I see, like in the vein of what you're talking about, is there's a lot of things involved in leadership development that isn't teaching people how to do things. Like that isn't. And a lot of it has to do with making sure you are growing your mindset as an owner. Like your team can't reach past where you are. And so if you're not willing to broaden and man, there's always, like you said, there's fear involved, there's pride involved, there's, our own self-esteem is involved a lot of times. If you aren't willing to lean into growing your own abilities, and I don't mean physical, I don't mean marketing abilities, I don't mean, recruiting, I mean actually growing past that need to be I can't tell you, and everybody here knows how many owners take pride in, nobody can do it until I get there. And they take like a latent pride in that because it's how they're keeping themselves motivated to show up every day, is that everyone needs me,
Yeah.
It should, and I have heard you teach this, it should be harder for your team to do their job when you're in the office than it is. That you've told me many times, your team's like, what are you doing here? Why are you here today? You're not supposed to be here on this day, because they are so skilled at what they do and they have such a natural flow that your being there actually disrupts how ordered and how well that machine is working. And I hear that so much in our talks and how you're coaching other owners. And so to kind of to land the plane, to bring it all in here, what is that step besides, for anybody listening, that 15 minutes is your next step. Like if Nicole Haney says, I will talk to you and give you an action step for absolutely free, and all you have to do is, what do you say, leadership? Is that what you said? I don't want to say the wrong word. Yep. All you have to do is put that, like, that is the next step. But I will say, what is the next step for going forward? How are they going to start developing it when they realize, I'm not an owner, I'm a firefighter, I'm a solutions person. I'm unfortunately better at recruiting than my recruiter is. I'm better at scheduling than my scheduler is. How do they start that ladder? What is that first rung on the ladder for our owners?
Yeah. So with a lot of owners, what I have them start with is because it's a mind shift or a mindset shift, right? Like we go from being the owner operator into being a kind of a leadership operator when we're talking about this transition in our agencies. So the thing that I always have owners start with is, what is your core value? It's different than your big why. It's different than your mission, vision, or value statement, but understanding what is your core value. And if you hop on a leadership call or leadership ladder call with me, that is going to be the thing that I ask you. And I start every call out with that is, what is your core value? Because until you know what your core value is as an owner, then it's really hard to start putting systems into place and putting the people in the right positions if you don't understand at the core of what you're doing, why you're doing it. And when I started doing this with my agency, I had to figure out what was the most important for me, because that's how you lead your team. So for me, it was the word integrity. Everything I came up with, it always came back to integrity. What do I want out of my team? What do I want for my clients to receive? What do I want my families to see? How do I want to be remembered as an owner and a leader in my agency? And at the end of the day, it came down to, we identified like all these personality traits, and it all came back to integrity, always doing the right thing, even when nobody was looking. And so when I started to develop those things, I was like, it's integrity. You make integrity hires, you provide integrity training, you provide service with integrity. Every decision you make, if you are making that decision for me from an integrity standpoint, because it's the right thing to do, your team sees that. Your team feels that. And your team is very easy to emulate that in their day-to-day operations. They're going to lead your business, for me, from a place of integrity. And so the easiest thing to do is grab a list of personality traits or values or core values and find one word that really resonates with you. And that's what we're going to talk about on that leadership call. That's a first thing, because that helps me help you understand how you need to make decisions and how you need to set parameters in the business. What does your leadership team need to look like? Do they need to be integrity focused? Do they need to be growth focused? Whatever it is, there's no right or wrong. It's whatever resonates with you at the time. So I would say that is the first step, is figuring out what your one core value is as an agency owner. And we start with that and we kind of build on that.
That's awesome. And that shows your expertise in why you're the expert, is because being able to do something is one thing. Being able to teach others is a whole nother ball game. And you're very, very good. And I appreciate the fact that you come with such wisdom and such skill that you share with the whole group. And there's owners here that, maybe you're not ready for that leadership call. Maybe you're just hiring that first person, or you just have a caregiver on, it's just you and one. So maybe you're not, but you can define your core value and you can start from that standpoint. That's your first rung. And so, but for those that, maybe you are at $1 million and you still know Sally's scheduling, maybe you are there, and maybe that call is the perfect thing to get you to that next step. So thank you today for being part of, and thank you for just in general, y'all see Nicole in the comments, and she's active, and she has a heart to help. She has a heart to make sure that our industry as a whole is well represented. And not only that we're taking care of those that we are entrusted with, but that we're taking care of ourselves. Man, we cannot pour from an empty cup, and owners need to be nurtured and taken care of, and know that we are the number one asset of our business. Our business does not function. Nobody else gets help if that owner is out there struggling and feeling like they're drowning constantly. That there is no healthy equation where the owner is at that point, at that mental, spiritual, and emotional point. So thank you so much for what you have poured into our group. Thank you for something that there's not one person that can't start exactly where she said and get on that page and make real improvement today. Thank you for joining, and look forward to our next episode of ActionCast.